Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. The economic situation in Germany looks not very great. It looks still better, of course, than in a lot of other European countries or in a lot of other countries in the world, but overall it is not great. A couple of new numbers are out and some estimates for the economy, for the growth and for the tax revenue in the next year are or have been coming out and are updated all the time, and I want to go over these numbers in this video and put them a little bit into perspective. So first of all, we lost tax revenue, of course, because of the shutdown of our economy, the lockdowns and all these anti-pandemic measures that our government had enacted here, or that they choose to enforce on the population and the economy. And that means that this year already 80 billion euros are missing in the federal tax revenue, and next year 2021 it is estimated to be 20 billion more. That means overall this and next year 100 billion euros already less tax income. And for next year our finance minister and vice chancellor Mr. Olaf Scholz, he already announced that next year we will be going into 100 billion euros additional new debt. That is quite a substantial sum, and this has been announced now. So in addition to that, this year already we have we had a budget. Of course, that budget was updated. That means it was an additional budget has been made, and so far we have in this year already 200 billion euros additional debt for all these measures that are supposed to soften the blow for the economy. So these are measures to help people who, because of the fault of the government, of course, lost their jobs or lost business or lost revenue. And that puts us roundabout, to give you just a rough number, 300 billion euros of new debt that the German people will have to pay back in the future. That means the coming generations, as they always say in the newspapers. But it's not really the coming generations, it's everyone but the boomers, because the boomers are retiring soon. They will not have anything to do with that. Their retirements and their pensions are secure, because what is that? That is basically vote buying. You all know that next autumn in 2021 there is the next federal election in Germany, and they have to secure the votes of the boomers, and this is what they're doing here. And it's not the coming generations, because I'm Gen X and I'm a middle-aged man. I'm not the coming generation, but I will have to pay that stuff back. And also Gen Y and Gen Z. I mean, they're already here. They're not the coming generations, but they will have to pay that back, of course. And that won't be pretty. So that means we're going into a lot of debt now, so that the boomers are still voting for the Social Democrats and for the CDU of Angela Merkel and for the Green Party, and future generations, or the not so old people, let's say, they have to pay all that money back at some point. And of course they can't. Of course they will be paying back interest little by little, but they will never be able, I think, to pay back the debt entirely. So either our entire how should I say that? Either the euro collapses and there is a big reset or something, or the coming generations will be in debt servitude for a long, long time. Maybe 5 generations, maybe 6 generations, I don't know, maybe forever. Because that's the thing. Our finance minister said, well, this is nothing special, this is just normal Keynesian economics. After Mr. Keynes, who came up with this economic theory in the Great Depression, so that government spending will create demand, and that will create employment, and then you get out of a depression, basically, out of a big recession. So you guys know probably that I'm not a big fan of that theory, and I said before that representative democracies, they don't really have any motivation to pay back the debt when the economy runs again. So you always have the debt, it stacks up more and more from recession to recession, and the amount or the ratio of interest payments on the overall budget will steadily increase, and that is the practical problem with that, I guess. But it goes even further. I mean, even Mr. Keynes would probably disagree with what our government is doing at the moment, I think, because I'm not sure if he wrote in his books, let 5 million people from all over the world enter your country and turn your country into an all expenses paid hotel for these people, and in addition crash your economy by overreacting to a disease that you first ignored and first played down and made sure that everybody gets infected by leaving your borders open and letting the Chinese come until April. So I don't think that is what Mr. Keynes had in mind. So I think this economic crisis was, if it wasn't planned by our government, it was at least exacerbated, and they handled it very, very poorly. I think I should get out of the wind here. I hope you can still hear me. I got a new microphone, by the way. So this is what I think about that. And what will that lead to? It will, of course, lead to, as I already said, debt servitude. People will become slaves, more or less, of the banks or the international elites where our government is borrowing money from. And in that sense, the next generations are being sold out into servitude by our government at the moment. Because this number, 300 billion euros, that is already on the order of magnitude of an annual federal budget of a couple of years ago. And this number looks suspiciously close to what I would estimate is the cost, or order of magnitude, not precisely, but roundabout ballpark numbers here, to what all these newcomers and irregular guests and travelers are costing us each year. So if our economy doesn't produce any annual surplus to give away to these foreigners, as it was the case in the boom years, now you just have to get that money in debt. Because, I mean, you can blame now this disease for it, for example, or you can blame the boomers for it. But in the end, this is not really what is happening. In the end, you have to see that you can spend your money on this or on that. Nobody said that, okay, this billion of tax money goes to the retiring boomers, and this billion goes to the guests, and this billion goes to the pandemic measures. No, you have X amount of taxes, and then you have to see what you do with this money. And nobody forced our government to take in all these people. And if we hadn't take those people in, we would have the money now easily to pay for all these pandemic measures and to pay for all those boomers. No problem. The problem is when you want to do everything at once. And this is exactly what people like me, people who are a little more careful, because it is our money, but these people who never studied anything and who never worked anything productive and who never had to make their own money because they always were living off the taxpayers' dime, These people are very liberal with spending other people's money, and they want to do everything at once. They want to grow the state, they want to grow the expenses as fast as possible so that we have to go into more and more new debt. And this is exactly what happens now. And this is not an accident. Don't think that this is an accident, that these people just cannot calculate and that they should have known, but they messed up, oopsie. No, 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 no. This is planned. They know exactly that Germany, and no country in the world, by the way, can handle this amount of, or these big obligations, these financial burdens. We can handle one of them, we can handle two of these things, but we can't handle three or all of them, or there might be other things that come to mind actually. This whole green energy stuff, you know, these windmills and these solar panels that don't really work, or that are way too costly compared to nuclear or coal or gas or what have you. So there are all these things, and if you take all these things together that our government did in the last 10 years, it is absolutely crazy. It is. They thought that the golden goose will be laying golden, or the goose will lay golden eggs forever, and it goes on and on and on, and we just have infinite funds, and it goes on forever basically. This is the mindset that they had. But so I'm convinced that they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew that they would put too much of a burden on the German taxpayer. And I think they just want to see when it breaks, when the system breaks down, when we can't pay it back anymore, or when we can't pay for all these obligations. And I think the biggest by far are all these foreigners in Germany that do not work, that are every day creating costs, and not just of the financial kind. And this is definitely the greatest burden overall. The other things are also in the same way, like a stone weighing us down, a stone that's tied around our necks. But as I said, the biggest burden is these strangers that just should not be in our country. Okay, so what do we take away from this? I gave you a couple of key numbers. 300 billion, that's the the takeaway message, or the big number that I wanted to present to you. And this will all be new debt, and part of it is still an estimate. There will be more, of course, and when the economy doesn't magically recover, which it won't, because other countries are struggling too, and we're an export nation. Our economy is based on export, or based around exporting goods, and if other people cannot import these things, or if they're also struggling, then our economy will not recover fast. That's very, very certain, I think. So I said this many times before. I said it in last years. I said, yeah, Germany is a, what did I say, a metastable equilibrium or something like that, like an analogy from chemistry. And I said that as long as we can pay for all these guests, tribute payments basically, and they have become entitled, they have become accustomed to a certain lifestyle, like divorcing women would say. I said, once we cannot pay for this anymore, we will see very, very bad things. And I didn't, of course, I didn't give an exact time frame, but I think I made this video about 2 years ago, and here we are, just 2 years later. And already we can see that it is probably coming sooner than later to these horrible scenes that I warned people of, or I warned them about this. And here we are. So I think in the next year, until the election, they want to keep appearances, they want to act as if everything is safe, and yeah, your retirement is safe, and everything is okay. The system runs on like you all guys are used to. Don't worry too much. But I think after the election, it will become brutal. It will become, changes will come really fast, and people will become very, very unsatisfied, very angry, and we will see horrible scenes in Germany. So we see in the US already what that can lead to. I always urge people to get out of the cities, and I think this would be my advice to people in Germany, especially foreigners. If you don't speak the language, if you don't have a lot of friends around you, things can get heated. And if you don't speak the language, if you don't know your surroundings, if you don't know the people, if you cannot judge what is a dangerous situation because you're not accustomed to the culture or to your surroundings, get out of the big cities. That is not a place to be. Just a friendly reminder. Catch you guys again later. Servus, Kameraden.